instead of downward. You're just counting
Well,
up.
I was watching the numbers and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, it's at 3 seconds, and it's like that would be really rude for me to say 3, 2, 1. So I thought,
So you go
well,
two,
count.
three. Okay, go.
Okay, go. Yeah, made it so much better.
Oh my goodness. Well, it is a Monday night, and thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy Monday night schedule to spend some time with us. We are very happy to be here and not freezing, at least in my neck of the woods. John still, he tells me the temperature, and I'm thinking like,
Why do you people live
I'd
there?
rather deal with gators than have to deal with what he has to deal with. There's just no way. But with that being said, we do have a pretty cool show for you tonight. And, John, you posed this topic to me, the 5 most needed talents for a DJ. And I just have no idea what you mean.
Well, what I wanted to kind of dig into tonight, and this is as we've been preparing for the show in February, is one of the things as a producer of the educational content, you kind of look at what do people need, what do DJs need, what do wedding entertainers, mobile entertainers need to be successful, and you start looking at some things that you can teach, some things you can encourage, and some things that are innate. As a teacher, you know exactly what I'm referring to, because you see this in the students that you work with on a daily basis, where some get it, some will never be able to get it, and some had it before they came into the classroom, and they're wondering why you're wasting their time. That's just the way it is. So what I want to do tonight is there's certain things that DJs need to be able to be skills, talents, what have you. They need these things to be able to achieve a level or a high level. So as an example, since everyone's been talking about this, the Super Bowl halftime show, you have 2 performers who were very good dancers, very good athletes, and both could sing. Those were talents that they needed to have to achieve that level of success. Now, we don't know if they were any good with math. We don't know if they could make a pot of stew that people would like, because those may be talents that they didn't need for where they are today. So that's what I wanted to kind of look at and this is something I wanted to have, like, kind of a little bit of group participation from the chat rooms tonight, which I see Robin and Reggie and Rez. Day is with us. Thank you for being with David. So I want you guys to kind of share, as we're kind of discussing this a little bit, of some of the things that are talents. And there's going to be way over 5. But I really want to, by the end of the night, is to kind of prioritize those 5 things that are the most important. And there's a lot of others that would be important as well, but maybe not as important. Does that make sense?
It does. Although I want to ask, because this would be an MJ question here.
Yes.
All right. So are we focusing on a particular type of DJ? Because I think that will kind of aid into which skills become a little bit more required versus just having.
See, and I would agree that we would have, in essence, 2 lists, or maybe this list, this is more important, this is still needed, but it isn't as high on the priority list for this type of DJ. Let's just go wedding DJs and more club DJs. Let's just use those 2 dividers. There's some skills that both will need. One is more important than the other, and that we'll probably talk about that as we go through. Don't need instruction to rock. Don't need no instruction to know how to rock. Yeah. See, now that, depending upon where you are, in some cases that could be the case, and some cases maybe not so much. So that's what I wanted to get into, is as people are kind of throwing things out, because we've already got some people throwing things into the chat room. Thank you for doing that. And if you're on Facebook tonight, you can utilize the chat there also. It looks like that is feeding over. So we won't be able to, well, I guess I can reply, and everybody sees the reply because it goes to all 7 spots. But yeah, I think we'll just have some fun with this. So,
all right.
So the first off, I guess, Dan, is if you're following the chat, knowledge of music, their feeling is the number 1. I don't know if I agree with that one.
I don't know if I'd place that as number 1.
I don't think so.
I will say in my number 1 spot, I had something very similar to it, but not necessarily knowledge of music. I said reading the crowd. I said reading the crowd because I feel like the two kind of go hand in hand. You have to be able to know your music to be able to recognize what's going to work within a particular audience or be able to read into what they're responding. But I don't know if it's necessarily like, for example, I know a lot of people who know their music who would be horrible DJs. Like just because they know something about a particular song or they know the songs in general, I think that it doesn't lend itself to making good choices about the music.
Right. I would agree. So let's look at, okay, so you thought or mentioned the being able to read the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to any number of EDM performances or any of these larger shows where they put together a set. They really, in some cases, have no idea what crowd is going to be in front of them. They know maybe demographics of the crowd or some characteristics. Oh, they're going to be 20 through 23-year-olds. That's maybe about it. Some of the very most successful DJs in the world don't read the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's like, okay, so looking at which skills do those who are ultra successful, what talents do they have that put them on that stage?
Well, could it be said that they don't read the crowd, obviously, because the set's pre-made, but they know their crowd, they know their audience? And Rez kind of hit on it with his comment of music programming. I think that, as we look at this and maybe kind of broaden, we start out with just knowledge of music and we say, okay, well, we brought that out to reading the crowd. We broadened it out even further to music programming. So in a situation of a festival type DJ, or just playing on that large stage, they know their audience, they know what's going to work. And so they're not reading them, they pre-programmed it. Or for the other side, those of us that are doing weddings or doing the more small scale, we're not going in with a set list because we're reading the crowd to be able to make those, if you will, on the fly changes.
And I guess the music programming, I think, is probably the best way to describe, I think, where we're headed with this. Because on the fly stuff, as you're describing at a wedding, that's really music programming using your knowledge and experience of past, what works, what doesn't work. And a large national touring DJ, they are going to have their music programming is going to be set because they know their audience, or they know that the audience is coming to see them, so that they can program their specific set in the way that they would do it because people are expecting that set to work and act that way. I think that knowledge of music, I would probably have that one down quite a ways in some cases, because I look at my Michael, my son, who's out doing high school dances, and he's getting much better. He will go and play his set of music. He doesn't have the wide knowledge of music that I have. He doesn't have even some of the mixing skills. He has some mixing skills that I don't possess, but there's things that, knowing the nuances of some of the songs that I have that he doesn't have. So we do have two different shows, but yet his show goes over better with teenagers, partially because obviously age is part of it. But he's programmed his show for that age group more than I've been programming it more for a wider age group, I suppose. Playing some of the 2010, 2015 hits that have gone over and that the kids are asking for and engaging, but yet he's music programming that one specific narrow band. And that's the kids who make the decisions to hire him back. And they're like, yeah, we want him back because that's what he's doing. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting thing. Music programming. He is programming for that audience. Dancing the polka is certainly up there. Yeah, sure.
I think that's a niche DJ,
and that would be that would start just on the edge of that Lake Michigan, and it goes probably over to about the edge of Minnesota, and that's there right there's that little niche.
And Reggie's very lucky to live right in the middle of all that, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he knows the music. The one area that I wanted to is having the, again, let's pick on Michael a little bit here, having the look and being of the right age. Is that important in this day and age when it comes to being a DJ?
And again, I think, this is going to depend upon where you're playing and what you're doing. But I almost feel in some aspects, the age, no, the look and the feel, yes. And so what I mean by that is, you know, and of course we're the day after the Super Bowl, so we're going to make all these kind of analogies and keep going back to that, I'm sure. But you've got Shakira, who's 43, you've got Jennifer Lopez, who's 50. You talk about you talk about some of the top DJs who are in their 40s and 50s, and oftentimes playing to a club crowd which is in their 20s. The age doesn't seem to matter, as because they're not coming across as maybe what the stereotypical age would be for someone that
Right.
is, like you have a club goer and their thought of 40s and 50s is, oh my gosh, that's my parents' age or whatever. But they're not seeing them in that same light. They're not looking at them in that same way. So I think it's not so much the age, but the feel or the look that ties to that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, where you've got someone who's in their mid 40s who is living, acting, breathing, what have you, the more of that hip style is still going to be relevant. Although DJ MRVIP, DJ Mr. VIP, mentions that old DJs think they're cool, but most likely are probably not. And that's what I would, as much as I hate to say it, that's the way I would perceive it, especially when you go to conventions and you're seeing a lot of DJs who are in their late 50s and early 60s who are we're not club DJs anymore.
Right.
And there's a reason for it, because we're just not that hip, cool person. And yet you look at, as Dan pointed out, Sunday night, there's most people, when we were asking around the room, because I knew how old Shakira was because of the 60 Minutes show that was on a week or two ago. Yes, I watched 60 Minutes, so that makes me old also. Thank you for that. But it's like, okay, so we pretty much everybody knew J-Lo was 50. It's like, so how old do you think Shakira is? And most were like, yeah, maybe 33, somewhere maybe in that ballpark. No, she's not. She's a little bit older than that. So, but her looks and the way she moves and acts and performs, she doesn't perform like a 40-something-year-old. She doesn't perform like Madonna did a few years back when she was 53 or 4 and moved like a senior citizen up on stage there.
David hits on something pretty good here too. He says, I find parents of the bride and groom appreciate having an older DJ who they feel more comfortable with providing a proper performance. I think there's also, when we're talking about age, we're talking about having that connection, not acting maybe in the stereotypical old. And we're not talking about coming across fake, and we're not talking about necessarily completely dressing to the hip, but we're talking about, having that right vibe and that right feel to it. But I think there is something to be said of not trying to act so young that you come across, I don't want to say inexperienced, but you come across aloof, you come across too young. And I don't mean, too young is probably not what I'm looking for here. But you're just not, you're not acting in such a way that you're going to lose that confidence that the older crowd would connect with in your wedding settings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My wording was not great there.
Yeah,
and I know that,
yeah.
so.
But well, it's really about the connecting, and as David's referring to couples connecting a little bit with an older DJ, that actually probably bridges not only from our music programming concept, bridges into the other part of it, especially in a wedding DJ, is that microphone or MC talent. The talent to be able to get on that microphone and make announcements, to connect with the guests in a way that feels genuine, that feels in control, and yet is charismatic enough and fun enough where people will feel like, hey, this is going to be a good time. You're not that person that's going to be the drill sergeant type person, what have you, from behind the microphone. Just having that quality, that skill to be a quality MC is probably a big part of what David's seeing also, I think. Just Just reading in the chat room, it's going pretty it's going pretty quick right now.
So while we're talking about this, I'll go ahead and hit on my second one. And it was weird. I called it good PR, but I think just good public relations. And I don't mean the persona of you maybe necessarily out in the public, although that's definitely good, and you definitely need to stroke that and keep that going. But my idea was just, you're trying to keep everyone happy. Like, if you tick off a group because of how you handle something, whether it be a song request, whether it be an interaction with somebody, whatever happens to be the case, you can turn off a group real quick, and your image can be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for the best paid, highest, nationally playing DJs to the guy who plays in the local bar down the street. If you've got some sort of reputation, if you're not keeping that good PR and working to keep as many people happy as possible, it's going to bite you real quick.
I'm going to put that under a label of people skills.
Okay.
And I would, this is probably my top one, especially for a mobile wedding DJ. If you don't have decent people skills to do exactly what Dan just spelled out so nicely, you're not going to, you'll book a few shows, but you won't have that longevity, because you will book and you will offend everyone. You'll work your way through, and once you've offended everyone down through the phone book, you'll decide at that point in time, you're either going to go work somewhere else or you're going to be out of business. One of the two. People skills, I think, and knowing how to handle them, not only as you're engaging them as they come up for requests or they're talking to you, and engaging people who are hiring you, and engaging, I think that might be one of the most underrated skills when it comes to performance, because you can be the greatest skilled athlete or the greatest skilled person, but they loved Kobe because Kobe was a great athlete, yes, but he was actually, excluding, obviously there was a couple of things in his life, but he was a pretty good guy. Everyone viewed him as he was that warm, charismatic person that people liked. And that's why he had that. If you have other people who people don't like, they don't, they become a footnote in a book of history type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I think people skills would almost be to a point at or higher, especially when it comes to repeat work or retaining your business. So yeah, good one. That was a good one there. I'm losing my people skills. Yeah, thanks to Facebook. After being on Facebook for about a half hour, you're ready to go slap people, and that's probably not good people skills.
Not so much.
Not so much.
But the nice thing, it's virtual, so you can't really do that.
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes you feel like you'd really want to just reach through the...
You want to. You always want to.
Yeah. Handling drunk people, there's a drunk people gives you your interpersonal relationship dealings right there.
While we're waiting for a few more ideas to pop up in the group, I would definitely also throw in some sort of a public speaking. Some sort of public speaking, and you could in some ways tie this to some skills that you have to have as just a normal human being. But when you're, regardless of the type of DJ, I feel like you're going to have to speak in public in some form or fashion.
Sure.
Whether it is an actual formal MC type of situation, or whether it is just I'm grabbing the mic and I'm making some announcements, or whether it's, promoting my next, project. If you're talking about the big stadium style performances, you're doing that at some point. And so you need to be able to speak good.
Kind of, as you're describing this, I'm flashing back to the old cartoons back in the 50s and 60s, where there's that super handsome guy and he's all, looks like $1 million, and he's wearing his nice suit, whatever. And all of a sudden they ask him a question and he's like, and it's basically this doofus type of a person who's falling over themselves. I think that you're exactly right, that the ability to be able to speak and to share, because you could be the greatest DJ in the world, and then you get on a microphone, and then, and you want everyone to, hey, everybody jump up and down, whatever. And, if you make the announcement in such a way that no one hears, or you're whatever, you cannot speak properly or well enough for them to understand what you're wanting, it's going to go a long way to hurting your brand, I would say, for surely. Being an officiant is a test for the emceeing skills. Oh yes, that is an area in which will test you and push you, especially if you're not comfortable speaking in front of people. Because what we'll end up doing is you will talk a million miles an hour. As ladies and gentlemen, here we are today to celebrate this day between Bob and Sue. And hey, everybody, let's all hand the rings back and forth. Welcome to officiating. So
David adds, oh, sorry. Go.
No, go. I didn't see it.
David puts in interaction with the crowd. He gets lots of positive feedback for how he interacts and engages the crowd versus behind the DJ booth. That's getting into that public speaking. You're interacting, you're making those connections, you are seeing them face to face, and they're putting a face with it. It's so funny how, and we hear this within bridal shows too, but just the idea of the people who stand behind the table versus the people who stand in front of the table. When you're talking about bridal shows, one of the bridal show 101 is don't sit behind your table. Don't, and even better, don't stand behind your table. Like, get in front of your table and make that connection. And yet how many people, when they're doing their performance, stay behind their booth the entire night? Like, they know to get out for a bridal show, but they don't for the other one. And it's like, use those skills, use those interactions, make that public speaking really connect.
Let's transition. We've kind of the skill, or the MC personality, music side of it. Let's talk about gear knowledge. And I know way back towards the top, Peter, Hubcap Dude, mentioned being able to read a manual.
Yeah.
Does gear proficiency is that a talent or a skill that a person needs to have? Or is it just something that some do and some don't?
I think it's definitely some do and some don't. And I would put this low on the list. I really would. I would put maybe something higher that connects to it, which would be something along the lines of the desire to learn about your equipment, the desire to want to know your equipment better, would definitely work a little bit better. But so much of our equipment is changing. I mean, when I first got started, I had the same CD deck for probably 5-6 years. It was a dual deck and it worked great. And then when I was able to go digital, I connected it together and it still controlled my laptop. So I was using it for years. And I knew what it would do. And I knew probably not everything about it, but a lot about it. And it was great. Now, I've got a controller and I've got it for 2 years and I'm eyeing a potential new one. And so I think it becomes a little bit harder to know our equipment quite to the degree because it's always changing. Whether because maybe we have a more propensity to buy new gear, or it's just the industry and what's coming out seems to be coming out at a faster rate, that it's hard to maybe know your equipment inside out, forwards, backwards, upside down, blindfolded. But with that being said, you're going to do better by learning the extra little tricks and tweaks and things that you can do to your system, whether it's MIDI mapping your controller to make it work exactly the way you ever dreamed, or whether it is knowing that equipment so that if something fails, you're ready to go. But I also think you can hire somebody at least for that second one.
Exactly. I think that there's almost a division of gear. Our performance tools, our immediate performance tools, and then the tools we use to create the music, what have you. Then the tools that we use to broadcast the music. I think as a DJ, that having a knowledge a high-end knowledge of your immediate tools, your controller, if you're using a controller, your mixer and turntables, and to be able to perform using the tools. It's kind of, let's go to the construction analogy. As a construction person, I need to know how to be able to swing a hammer, and I need to know how to use my tape measure at a very high level to be successful, and how to deal with my handsaw. But I could have somebody else drive the truck to haul my tools to the job site type of thing. So I don't need to have all of the gear. I don't have to be high functioning in all the gear, but I need to be high functioning in the things that I'm going to use to do this task. So I think this is an area, and actually as DJs, and you as you were talking, you were kind of alluding to it, that we don't know all the little nuances of our most important performance tools, the software. What do all these things do? How can I use this button to enhance my performance? MJ goes through, and I've watched his shows, dozens of times, and there's still things within virtual DJ or even the controllers, the same one that you and I have, and he does something and it's like, I didn't know that existed.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like a fool once again.
Or I knew it did that, but I never knew why it was a good idea to use it.
Yeah, I know that one too. But it's one of those things that as a performer, the skill of being able to take that and utilize it. Yes, I can function by not knowing how to utilize the jog or whatever. I don't even. I could function with that, but to be a higher level and be more of a successful performer, and to be more of a unique performer than everybody else in my market, knowing that tool, utilizing that tool into my performance, I think it's got to be up there certainly in the top 5. And this one might be pushing up into that, that maybe the 3 position, somewhere in that ballpark.
I love how this whole entire time we've avoided the elephant in the room. But I also love the fact that...
Don't call Howie an elephant. He's a nice guy.
He's not an elephant.
That's what I just said.
He comes across more as a llama to me. But maybe that's just because I've watched too many of... now I can't remember the name of the movie. Zootopia. That's it.
Zootopia.
So he reminds me a little bit of a llama. A llama who showers, at least. He smells better. But no, let's go ahead. Let's throw the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Mixing.
Yes.
We've completely bypassed this the entire time. So let's just go ahead and get that out there. Where do you stand on the stance of mixing, at least in the idea of the top 5? Does it belong there?
Here's I think, as we sit today, and as we look at, we have our wedding DJ and we have our club DJ or bar club. Bar club, I think mixing is mandatory. There's no question about it. I think in our mobile wedding world, I don't think it's not mandatory. I think it's nice to have. I think if you can do it, it can set you apart from a lot of other people in your markets, and depending upon the market. It isn't a mandatory thing, which is, to a point, it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of people out there who have no idea that, what an experience is like where a person is mixing from one to this, and you're keeping that consistent tempo, or you're building with the tempo throughout, and what that can do to a dance floor. Instead, most of the world, their experience of a DJ is, and the song fades out and the song fades in, type of thing. I think mixing is something that's country DJs mix. Yeah, I've got actually one of the DJs I've had on the show. He's an incredible remixer with country music, and we're gonna have him on again. I think this spring. It's part of the. I think it's part of the process. I think it's. I think in 5 years we're going to look back and say, how did DJs not mix everything, or how, as the tools become more prevalent and we get better with it. But as we are today, I think the bar has been set so low by so many of us out there who have just, in essence, they were doing what the iPad. No, I can't even say that, because the iPads can now mix better than a lot of DJs can. They just were doing what a CD would do, in essence, on a CD player. Play, fade out, fade in, go.
I agree with you in the fact that you can have success with doing it. However, I think when we're talking about when we look at that upper echelon, when we use that kind of as our litmus test earlier in the show, of when you look at that top level, it's included. It's being done, and I don't care if you're looking at wedding. I don't care if you're looking at just regular mobile. I don't care if you're looking at um, you know, like you said, bar and club, that's a given. And I think anybody who would try and argue that, especially for the club side, you'd lose. But with that being said, with our wedding DJs and stuff like that, and there's also something to be said. There's different styles of mixing that we could get into too, and we could talk about that. I don't think you're going to see a turntablist that is jockeying and doing scratches and creating a performance level when we're talking necessarily about mixing being in that upper echelon. Are there ones that do it? Sure. That's something that's setting people apart. But I do feel that when we talk about what creates the biggest success, you are seeing it definitely in there. And the guys in the chat room and girls in the chat room that are saying, listen, we're successful and we're not mixing. I'm not saying you're not. I'm not saying you can't be successful. But if we compare it to the most successful within that area of DJing, within that, I'm not saying we're comparing to a club. I'm talking your wedding, comparing to the upper echelon of the wedding DJs, you're going to find that's where they're mixing. I think it's in the top 5? No, but I'm throwing that out there.
In a day, clients are demanding that type of performance. I think that there will be more of that. Kind of like, how there's more of a demand for Polish polkas today than there was, 20 years ago.
I want to see Reggie mix polka.
I bet he could do it.
I bet he could.
The polka side of it. It's just when you try to mix from a waltz to a polka, that would be tough. That's 2 different time signatures. Would work.
I got you. I can do it.
So we've talked about the music side of things and the MC side of things, a little bit about the look and age side of things. We've talked about the gear side of things. The last part, and we're pretty much right on time. Let's talk about the business side of things. How much of a business person do you need to be successful as a DJ?
Huge. I think this, this definitely is up there. And I would put this probably at 2.
That's exactly where I had it to myself.
Yeah. I didn't originally have it on my list, but as soon as you started bringing it up, it's got to be a 2, because here's the thing. If you're not successful at the business side of this, you're a very talented hobbyist.
Yep.
And it's going to be very hard to afford your hobby if you're treating it in that sense. And I, talent aside, you have to have those business skills to get the events that are going to then turn around and pay you so that you can continue to do it, and therefore just the cycle over and over and over again. Without it, you're just, I don't know how you can. You do a lot in your bedroom, I guess.
You could. Now let's put a pin on that, because Mr. DJ, Mr. VIP, thank you for putting that statement in there. I hate business. Now then you're not alone. There's DJs out there that hate dealing with numbers, hate dealing with contracts, hate dealing with any of this. Very, very common. Does that mean that they can't be successful? No, it doesn't. What it means is that they don't like one aspect of the business. So now what they need to do is really find someone. They might work for a multi-system operator. They might be so talented and skilled that they find themselves a manager who can do those types of things. And you can be super successful if you partner with the right people. And I think that is the part that we hate to look or think about. It's like, I can just go and my talent, why aren't people paying me the $10,000? I'm worth it. I'm that good and skilled. Well, there might be somebody that you need on your team that you don't have on your team. So when Mr. VIP and others don't like those areas, find a way to bring those into your circle who can complement your skill set with their skill set to become that team that can go out there and do a great job with what you want to do.
Being good at business doesn't mean that you're good at, and he put in, tax time, renewed licensing, updating social media. It doesn't mean that you're good at those things. Being great at business means you surround yourself with the people who are.
Good point.
It can be exactly as he says, it can be overwhelming to do all of these things. And especially if you're trying to do it while you're doing, basically 2 full-time jobs, a DJ full-time and whatever your 9-to-5 job might end up being, if you're trying to do both of those and you're trying to keep up on all the business side, how you almost have to surround yourself with those people that are going to take that load off of you and help you work better.
So VIP just basically in that sentence there with tax time renewing just went through and made a job description for an assistant or from a that's really what it is defining, listing those things out that are part of what needs to happen, and then finding people who can make those things happen at a high level. And you're halfway done right there. DJ Rez. Yeah, I was a professional hobbyist teacher for a while. I put in my 40 hours or whatever it was a week. It was great.
So here's the question. And the whole other can of worms maybe when we open this one, and we don't have to go there. For those of you that might not have noticed Rez's comment, if you have a full-time job other than DJing, you're a professional hobbyist. At what point does your full-time job become the professional hobbyist? Just something to throw out. In other words, I get where they're saying maybe to a degree, okay, because I'm doing both of these, the DJing becomes the hobbyist and the regular job becomes the profession. Why couldn't it be the other?
And that's kind of what I was tongue in cheek alluding to.
When you said that, okay.
Yeah, when I was teaching, I was making more money as a DJ. That it was the last year I was teaching, my DJ income was exceeded that. Different hours and what have you. But so which one was the hobby and which one was the actual, the business, what have you, or what my profession. So, okay. So the business side, you cut right to the chase there and define that business side, to be good at that, you need that team. We talked the gear, knowing what it takes to make a high level performance. You need to know that. The other things, in essence, can be part of that team to set up if you are that. I've got one of my DJ friends who doesn't really understand audio systems that well, but he's a really good performer when it comes to the mixing side of it. So he has a setup crew with him all the time. He's used a setup crew for 20 years during his whole career. So, music-wise, knowing music programming, that might have been the only one I think everyone pretty much agreed on, actually. The music programming is important. So interesting discussion in the chat room tonight. Thank you guys for being with and sharing your thoughts and such. I don't catch that. Jonathan had a statement when we were asking about when the DJ becomes the profession. He made a comment on it. I don't understand it. So for those of you, we're going to wrap things up in just a little bit, just to give you a little heads up. If you didn't get a chance to check out the show earlier tonight, the first show tonight was going through the full schedule for the upcoming conference. If you're thinking about going, or if you're going, the new schedule is up. We moved a few things around and moved some people around. Specifically, we added a seminar. Ron Ruth, we moved him into Tuesday. We moved Rick into Wednesday. And then the mixing, Tony Fernandez with his mixing, he's actually going to be in the chill room doing more of a hands-on time frame, talking about remixes and using remixes. And it was going to fit better in there, into the chill room. The chill room, of course, is open. The schedule and everything's out at djntv.com/show. You guys can check that out. We are 3 weeks away. Tonight, at this time, we will be, let's see, that would be 7:40. So yeah, we'll be into the welcome party in 3 weeks from tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is coming up quickly. Generally, airfare is still pretty decent until you get that 14 days out. So if you're thinking about it, go check the airfare, see what it's going to be, and if you can make it happen. The ticket prices are locked in until Friday. We basically looked at it. We had some people who were like, okay, we want to buy it, but we need to wait until the next, after the 1st. We extended it till Friday, and then after Friday, the ticket prices are going to go up, I believe, to the door price. So it's $225 this week. Friday, it goes, well, Saturday, it goes up. And then after that, we will see, it'll be the ticket price in Vegas. So other than that, yeah, that's the big stuff. So I think we're good.
Awesome. So many things, so many exciting things happening this month, just because of like, as we get closer and closer. Like I've been watching this as the events kind of unfolded from, the hypothetical, not hypothetical because I didn't know about it at that stage, but when it got to like the more concrete and then it was there. It's like,
oh yeah, when we're seeing, the show programs are getting printed now, and the banners, that'll be in the hallways, and all of these different things there's just so much to do with these things, and that's with a team of 5 of us. It's like, oh my goodness gracious. But I mean, truthfully, we're putting on 2 shows. We're putting on 2 conventions. We have the DJ convention and we have a photo booth convention. And yeah, they're in the same exhibit hall, but we've got planning for 2 big seminar rooms and the master classrooms. And if you go look at the Photo Booth Expo, go photoboothexpo.com. If you go and check their tickets, they've got all of the master classes that they have there. And there must be like 40. There's not that many, but it's just, there's tons of masterclass options that you can take there. There's just so much stuff going on. It's like crazy. You can go to that schedule and you look at that, and I'm thinking to myself, well, there's the 4th place I would like to be at that specific period of time. So it's like the chill room is going to be empty. It'll be just like crickets and Brian Red in there because everyone's going to be getting education some way, shape, or form. No, it'll be busy in there too, but should be good stuff.
awesome.
Yeah.
So this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, what's the laydown? What are they looking forward to checking out?
Let's see. I think tomorrow night we have, I know Nick Spinelli is going to be on this week. We're going to be talking about using nonprofits to, I believe it's nonprofit events to building your business. That was one of the shows. I think those are Wednesday night. Then we have Ben Stowe is talking about, what were we going to do tomorrow night? Oh, video. Running video, because that's come up once again, because now that the Alto Stealth stuff came out, finally the Stealth Pro, everyone, okay, now we can run audio. And we can use Sennheiser, we can use Alto, we can run audio. How can we run video? So we're going to dig into that again for running video. We've done that show a couple of times, but we're going to hit it again tomorrow night. And then Brian and I tomorrow night are going to be digging into the subwoofer thing, because Brian's been doing a lot of videos on adding subwoofers to your system. So Brian has been doing it from his experience and his trial and error and his version. So I went and did some research and talked to some people on the technical side of it. So we're going to combine our knowledge tomorrow night and share some thoughts when it comes to adding subwoofers to, whether it's your line array, your little array systems, or if you're adding subwoofers to your full system. So should be some good stuff this week. Hopefully people can join us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you got a plan, everybody. So just make a note of it. Put it in. Set the notifications up within YouTube, and you'll be able to find out, and it'll tell you right away when you need to tune in if you forgot, and you'll be all set to go. But do want to thank everybody for taking time out of their Monday evening. Of course, I always start the show and I end the show the same way, because without you, I should say, this just wouldn't be possible. John and I'd be sitting here talking on Monday night, and then he'd go freeze, and I'd go to bed. But on that note, we do want to thank you for taking time. Enjoy your evening. And if I don't see you before, we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.